Just imagine standing in line at 5 a.m. in the brutal cold. Why are you doing it? You just want to buy a single quart of milk. Or maybe you'll get a potato for lunch or another for dinner. Anna Ord faced these deprivations far worse growing up in the former Soviet Union. Take a look.
Professor Anna Ord was born and raised in the former Soviet Union not long before its collapse in 1991. Today, she's the new dean of Regent University's School of Psychology and Counseling. Dr. Ord came to America by herself at age 19 on a full scholarship. She found the contrast between Western abundance and Russian scarcity to be stunning. Today, she'll tell us more about her background, her faith, and hopes for the students of Regent.
Well, it's a pleasure to welcome the new dean of the Regent University School of Psychology and Counseling, Dr. Anna Ord. Anna, it's so good to see you. You came out of the Soviet Union. I understand when you were a little kid, you were strapped down without anesthesia. What did they do to you?
It was a pretty scary experience, I'm not gonna lie, but because healthcare was nationalized and it was just poor quality, and they used like anesthesia for real surgeries, you know, where people had to be out. And so I remember just going into the operating room, they put you on the chair and they, you know, strap your hands and your feet. I didn't know why, I was 6, and then just pull your tonsils. It was pretty bad, but that experience was not unique to me. That's how it worked, healthcare in USSR.
How did you get out?
I will not lie, I was hoping to leave the country as soon as I could, so I studied really hard. I had a 4.0 GPA in high school, and then I started college. I was 15 years old. I graduated at 19, 4.0, and I was able to get a full scholarship to go to business school here in the US. And at 19, me and my suitcase, we got in the plane and from Moscow to DC, and the rest is history.
Well, how'd you get the money to do it?
So it is a very good question because our salaries, or my parents' salaries back then, were, you know, $100 or $200 a month. Mm-hmm. So of course it's not comparable to the wealth and money that we see here. So, you know, it was a family effort. We were able to, you know, have enough money for me to fly and things like that. But because I had good grades, good scores, I was able to get full scholarship, and they also paid me, you know, stipend to live on, you know, on campus and things like that. So that was wonderful.
Well, now you have not only finished that, you have you got a PhD from Regent University. Mm-hmm. And then you went on and got a degree in neuropsychology. Mm-hmm.
So I have my PsyD, my Doctor of Psychology degree here at Regent. Yeah. And I was thrilled to be here. I loved my program. I had top-notch clinical training. And I recently did complete my 2-year fellowship in neuropsychology and research as well. Yes, so I'm on my way to become a board-certified neuropsychologist.
Are you really?
Yes, yes. Fingers crossed, hopefully by the end of this year. Yes.
Well, now, your parents were atheists. Well, how did you learn about God?
Mm-hmm. So the generations of my parents and grandparents, they were all atheists. We grew up in USSR. But my great-grandmother, she was 16 years old when the communist revolution happened, and we had been a Christian nation for 1,000 years by that time. And so she carried her faith through 80 years of communism and that regime where it was dangerous for anyone to have a Bible or a cross. They could be persecuted. They could be in jail for that. And it's interesting to me that it took the communist regime just a few decades to eradicate that legacy we had for 1,000 years. So the first stories of Bible and Jesus, of course, I heard from my great-grandma, who carried her faith through that time, but it was also very confusing as a child, the propaganda and the brainwashing became very early on. Like, they start early on. And they tell you that there's no God, you have to believe scientific communism, scientific materialism. And it's very conflicting as a child to kind of hear those stories. And so I was already here in America, and I was working in the business world. I got my master's in business. I was making a good career. I was buying my first house at 24, you know, driving a nice car, living the American dream. And yet I was struggling a lot with depression and loneliness. I was moved away from my support system, from everyone I knew, from my parents, my friends. And it was a lonely time. And I think a lot of times God finds us in those lonely places and meets us there. And in my case, he used a coworker. She was around my age, and she was just inviting me to go to church. We were in the early to mid 20s, and she said, let's go, you know, meet people our age, get lunch, things like that. And I said, sure, I'll get lunch. And I started going to church with her. And within about 6 months, I just remember like just listening the stories and hearing just how amazing God is. And it touched me. And I experienced him just as a healing for my soul, really, and grace. And then my life changed 180 degrees. So if anybody watching there and the Lord is speaking to your heart to speak to your coworker, perhaps, right, invite them to church, listen to that call, because that's how sometimes God uses us to say.
Well, now, you have a very responsible position in Regent. He's put together a whole college of behavioral and physical and behavioral psychology. What is it? What are you going to be doing there? You've got a very important role.
Absolutely. So I'm not going to do it on my own strength. First of all, with God, all things are possible, right? And we have an amazing, just a stellar group of faculty and staff in the School of Nursing, in the School of Applied Health, and in the School of Psychology and Counseling. And as we're going towards that transition of merging those schools of behavioral and healthcare sciences, I think the Lord will open the doors and lean on his leading, of course, but we're going to continue growing enrollment, adding new programs that people want, that there is a demand for. We're going to maintain our stellar quality in our programs, and we're going to, increase it as well. And my hope and my prayer is that we can be that hub, that place for integration of faith and health, faith and mental health, faith and physical health, because we know that those two go hand in hand.
Great. Well, I want to say there are 150 unique areas of study at Regent University: business, counseling, communication, the arts, cybersecurity, divinity, education, government, law, and nursing. And Anna Ord, Dr. Ord, is going to be heading up it's going to be a physical and behavioral science. Am I good? Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, I'm so glad to welcome you and thank you for what you're doing. You speak English. Had your transition from Russian wasn't a problem?
It was. There's, of course, when you transition from one culture to another, of course, there are a lot of culture shocks. And I've actually experienced American people as very open, very, people hug each other. People are just very kind of friendly. That was my first memory. And I did start learning English when I was about 9 or 10 years old. And then by the time I was 15 or 16, my first job was tutoring little kids in Russia. Oh. I was giving them English language classes for, $1, $2, something like that. And I thought I was making the big bucks. And but transition, of course, is hard, especially at 19, and especially, not knowing anybody on this part of the world. And some people tell me, well, it's, so brave. And I say, well, when you're 19, it's more reckless than brave. But God has, seen it all. And he's carried me through all of that. And just looking back at my journey, how he carried me through the times when I didn't know if I didn't have the strength or the courage to go on my own, and he has been faithful.
Well, we're delighted to see you in Regent. Thank you for being here on the 700 Club. God bless you.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.